Good morning, class. In the following video, I'm going to explain more specifics of what I'm looking for with the persuasive speech. Now, you should have all submitted your topic and your main points. Your topic, your thesis, and your main points. And the goal of this speech, in contrast to the informative speech, our goal now is to persuade. So, with the informative speech, you may have thought of yourself as a teacher or a coach. For this speech, you want to think of yourself as an advocate, as a politician, as a lawyer, as a motivator to try to get us to do something. Now, for our persuasive speeches, I want you to come up with a policy claim. A policy claim. And you can think of this, whereas the thesis before, for the informative, you might have thought of as a central idea. Now you can really think of it as a claim, right? And when you make a claim, you're making an argument, right? You're making an assertion that you're supporting with evidence. And that is a kind of logos. It relates to your use of logic, supporting your claims with evidence. And that also relates to the way that you cite sources. Again, you're going to want to cite sources out loud. I'm fine with 3. I say here 4. So 3 is fine. And I should be able to hear you cite those orally. So you want to have good use of logic. And you also want to avoid logical fallacies, which is also one of the discussion boards. Along with that, you also want to bring in emotions, appropriate emotional appeals. So whereas the informative speech, you were more of a neutral sharer of information, now it's okay to evoke appropriate emotion. At the same time, like the informative speech, I still want to hear you state your ethos or your credibility on the topic, your relationship to the topic. Tell us why the topic is personal to you. What's your connection to the topic? You can also think of it as your kind of expertise. What makes you knowledgeable on the topic? So again, for this speech, I want to hear you have good ethos, pathos, and logos. Okay, so that being said, a lot of this speech remains the same as the informative speech, specifically the time frame. It should be a 5 to 7 minute speech. Again, it should be extemporaneously delivered, meaning it's practiced and prepared from brief notes. It is not reading word for word. Do not read word for word, but rather have sparse notes, if you need notes, that you look at, and then you're able to look up and connect with your audience with good eye contact. This speech should demonstrate knowledge of the subject matter, like the informative speech, as well as employ a style and arrangement suitable for persuasion. So again, that is stating your ethos. I would like for you to state your ethos right before your preview and after your thesis, and have a well-developed ethos statement of why you're credible on the subject. Further, speeches should appeal to the needs and desires of the audience analysis and adaptation, which we won't actually do, but this is where you want to have a reason to listen. So just like the informative speech, the first thing you would say is your attention getter that grabs our attention. The second thing you should do is give us a good reason to listen. Why should we care about your topic? And that's what this is. Why should your audience care about what you're going to talk about? And that should be the second thing you do, your reason to listen. You want to cite sources, right? 3 to 4 is fine. Bring in reputable sources, and make sure to explain your sources, where you got them, who wrote the articles, for example, and where they can be found. They should have creatively crafted and complete introductions and conclusions that accomplish the goals emphasized in the informative speech. So having a good intro, attention getter, ethos statement, thesis, purpose, preview, So attention getter is the first thing, a reason to listen is the second thing, a nice clear thesis, policy goal, and establish your ethos, and then preview your main points. And then a conclusion that signals the end, summarizes what you told us, and then this time, rather than having a close of impact, this time I want to hear a call to action. Something that we could go do that supports your larger policy goal. And you can think of the call to action as a kind of baby step that we can take, that we can go do today, that we can go accomplish today, that helps accomplish your major policy goal. So for instance, if you did want to take the nuclear waste at Yucca Mountain, you want Nevada to take the nuclear waste at Yucca Mountain, you might have us contact our state senators, Catherine Cortez Masto and Dean Heller, to advocate for that position. And you'd make it very, very easy for us to take that next step. You would give us like the email of our state senators or the phone number to call, and so you make that call to action very, very easy for us to go do today. If you are advocating for not texting and driving, right, you would ask us to, when we get in our cars today, to turn off our phones and drive home as attentive drivers, right? Again, a visual aid is not required. However, the effective use of visual aids has been helpful to many of the student presentations thus far, so you can keep that in mind. Yes, if you're using a visual aid, by all means you can. Make sure to give the camera to someone who can film your visual aid as well as you speaking, so I can see how you interact and use your visual aid. Once again, you should prepare 2 outlines. A preparation outline, right, that would go, that is the 40-point outline with all the parts labeled. So again, I want to see all those parts, the general purpose, specific purpose, thesis, intro, body, main points, and the bibliographic information for your sources, right? Again, label all the parts and follow the sample speaking outlines, the sample, preparation full sentence outlines that are up on Canvas. And then the second outline is your note cards, your sparsely worded note cards. So this time, please make sure to pan your note cards with your camera. For the informative speech, many of you weren't panning your note cards. Good job of panning the audience and getting full audiences, but make sure to also pan your note cards, because I want to make sure that you're not holding a manuscript, that you're not writing out your speech word for word, but rather that you have catchwords and phrases in your outline. So a lot of you have already submitted your topics, right? You want to pick something that you care about, that you're passionate about, and that should really come out with your delivery and your tone of voice. And so select something that you care about. Consider how the topic may or may not be interesting or relevant to your audience, because again, right after the attention getter, I want to hear what? A reason to listen. Why should we care? Narrow the topic to a specific claim, right? Something should or should not happen. We should quit our jobs and give out free hugs, right? What do you want us to do? Analyze your audience attitudes for your topic. Gather all the possible arguments and evidence to support your claim, right? So that's gathering the 4 sources, 3 to 4 sources. Think about how someone might argue against the claim, and then think of ways to prepare the speech to address or head off those counterarguments. Yes, part of good logos is also, part of good logic is also countering, coming up with counterarguments for people who oppose your policy position. Right. Okay. For this speech, I strongly recommend you organize using either problem, solution, or Monroe's motivated sequence. If you use problem, solution, you're going to have body points 1 and 2. The first one being analyzing the problem, and the second one being the solution, which is your policy goal, and explaining how your policy goal solves the problem. I strongly suggest you use Monroe's motivated sequence, which has 5 parts. It has attention getter, attention step. It has the need step, which is essentially the problem, getting into the problem, what needs to happen, or what is lacking in the status quo, what's currently lacking and what is needed. And that would be the first body point, is the need. The second body point, if you do Monroe's motivated sequence, is satisfaction, or what would be the solution, or what would be your policy goal, and you get into the details of your policy goal and how we would implement your policy goal and what it would look like, how we would actually implement that. And then the third step in Monroe's motivated is visualization. You get us to picture the world and what it would look like if we adopted your policy goal, and the dire consequences or the negative consequences if we did not. And that is where a lot of Monroe's motivated sequence gets its force. It gets its force in the visualization step. And then you signal the end, review your main points, and your speech should end with a call to action, which is the action step in Monroe's motivated sequence. Regardless of whether you use Monroe's motivated sequence or not, you should have a call to action that ends your speech. Your call to action, again, is a baby step that advances your larger policy goal. So, for instance, if you wanted to legalize recreational marijuana across all 50 states, you might ask us to go to a petition online that we could sign and pledge our support for a national bill legalizing marijuana across the country, right? And that would be the step that you want us to go take that advances your larger policy goal. So again, for this speech, as far as organizing the body, don't do topical. Topical is more of an informative speech structure. I want to hear you do problem solution or Monroe's motivated sequence. There's also a good handout talking about how to plug in Monroe's motivated sequence. I strongly suggest that you take a look at that as you arrange this speech. In terms of style and language choices and delivery, this speech should be treated as semi-formal speech before a group of adult peers. Language should be inclusive and invitational and respectful to all those, including those with attitudes and beliefs different than your own. Terminology and jargon should again be explained and sometimes avoided. Yeah, you definitely want to avoid the loaded language fallacy, just coming off as really, really biased, while at the same time it should be very clear of your policy position. But you want to be dismissive of the counter arguments, or, you for example, you wouldn't want to say gun control does nothing without supporting it with evidence, right? It seems like a loaded claim, right? Nothing, zero, zilch, nada, rather than contextualizing your claims with nuance, right? While logic is very important, remember that pathos and the full range of human emotions are crucial for motivation and persuasion. So at the same time, while having good logic and avoiding logical fallacies, you do want to bring in appropriate emotions to help win us over. Right. Please feel free to use repetition, vivid language, metaphors, and other stylistic devices, and use examples to make abstract ideas more concrete. So what you don't want to do is to do another informative speech, right? It should be very clear that this is a persuasive speech, very clear of your policy goal, and very clear how you feel about it. Memory, again, this should be good extemporaneous delivery. I recommend that you actually try to move or walk with your transitions to bring about your best delivery rather than staying in one place. You don't need to walk far, but you should take a few steps to your right or your left between your major points. That being said, you shouldn't pace or dance with your feet while you're talking, but you should really move with the major parts of your speech, and that can also help signify that you're transitioning. Speakers should try to demonstrate a natural familiarity ease and comfort with the text. Note cards should contain an outline of key phrases, quotes, and specific information needed for the speech, but should not be cumbersome or distracting. So again, you don't want to read huge notes, right? You want to have sparse note cards. And again, please pan your note cards with your camera. And then along with that, having great eye contact, right? Just your best delivery thus far. If you use visual aids, make sure I can see them. Have good loud volume and articulation and enunciation. Rate of speech should be at a not too fast, not too slow. And another thing that can really help with your ethos, right, is your ability to have good delivery. Along with delivery helping your ethos, delivery can also help your pathos, right? So your tone of voice can establish the mood and the emotions that you want to evoke. And the examples that you use. Okay, so those are things that I'm definitely going to be looking at and evaluating you on. And then your use of the rhetorical triangle. So again, ethos, pathos, logos, right? So ethos, again for this speech, right? Make sure to fully develop your ethos with the goals of your speech. So definitely have an ethos statement in your introduction. I would even recommend coming back to your ethos at some point to really develop it further in this speech. Don't be afraid to be personal with your credibility and with your experience with the topic. Also, pathos, like I said, is another important aspect of this speech. So you want to hear you evoke appropriate emotion, but the examples you use with your delivery, right? You know, if it's appropriate to win us over by making us sad, definitely evoke those emotions. If it's appropriate to win us over by making us angry at a sense of injustice, you can definitely evoke those emotions. And then, of course, logos, right? We want to hear a reasoned argument supported with evidence that avoids logical fallacies, right? So making sure that you support your claims with evidence, right? With citations, with evidence. You shouldn't say $188,000 without citing where you got that figure from, say, for instance, if we were talking about the economy, right? So making sure to cite well, to support your claims with evidence. Again, don't forget your good public speaking fundamentals. So preview, review, and transition your main points, right? There's an old saying in public speaking, the 3 tell-ems. First, you tell us what you're going to tell us, then you tell us what you told us. So again, have good structure, preview, review, and transition. Along with that, make sure to cite your sources out loud. So I should hear 3 to 4 moments of citation that you're bringing in. By all means, feel free to cite more. You now have some good experience speaking that you can apply to your persuasive speech. Remember, prepare, prepare, prepare. I'm looking forward to watching and hearing you shine. So really go for it with your persuasive speech. Again, you don't have to be neutral anymore. But that being said, you want to have good logos, pathos, and ethos, right? Here is more of a detailed rubric. As you can see, this is why I want you to pan your note cards to check out how well you did them. Again, you want to try to have less than 4. And again, I should hear a good attention getter that grabs our attention. This is a little out of order. So attention getter should be the first thing. The second thing should be audience orientation, or what I call the reason to listen. Why should we care about what you're going to tell us? The third thing is a nice, clear policy thesis statement, central claim that has the word should or should not. If you need to have should not, that's fine. Then you establish your ethos, tell us your credibility, right? And then you preview the main points. So in a persuasive speech using problem solution, your preview would preview the problem and the solution of your topic, right? If you're using Monroe's Motivated, your main points would be problem, solution, plus visualization step, and you would spell that out to us very clearly using signal words, first, second, right, with the details. Again, you're going to have a body with supporting, you're going to weave in, this should say persuasive style, actually, but you're going to weave in your citation. Again, as far as organizing the body, I'd like to see you do problem, solution, or Monroe's Motivated. Make sure to signpost throughout, right? Let us know where we're going, and tell us what you're going to tell us, and then tell us what you told us. You're going to review main points, and again, this time, you're going to want to have a call to action, right? Something small that we can go do that advances your larger policy goal. This is a breakdown of delivery. Again, you're going to turn in a 40-point outline, and I want to see all the labels have good subordination, indentation, so that things fit inside each other. Good alignment on your outline. Good grammar, and a works cited that matches the sources that you actually cite. That's one thing too. You don't want to pad your works cited with citations that you don't actually cite out loud in your speech. So only sources that you use should make it into your works cited, if that makes sense. So yeah, this time you're an advocate, right? You're not a neutral narrator, right? You care about this topic, and we should really be able to hear you passionately argue with evidence for your policy goal. That being said, I hope that you all really go for it. It's been good watching all your speeches, and I look forward to your persuasive policy speech as it comes in. There was one other thing I wanted to tell you. What was the one other thing I wanted to say? Yes, make sure to turn in your outline as it is 40 points, and definitely shoot me your questions as you have them. I know this speech is a little bit more complicated. Again, it's mostly the same as the informative speech in terms of structure, except the tone, the goals, and you wouldn't want to organize it topically, right? You wouldn't want to organize it topically. So shoot me your questions. I'm looking forward to these speeches as they come in, and have fun with it. Thank you so much. Have a great day.